All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream. And we do this every time, so if you guys know the drill, if you can hear me, if you could just say sound is okay on all three of the services, we'll be good to go. Quite a few people on here, which is good. So yeah, if you can hear me, please mention it on whatever service you're on. We just need one from each service. Okay, so Twitch is good. That's awesome. And you can hear me loud and clear. Is the audio good? I have it on max, so we should be okay. And let's see, we just need to get a heads up from YouTube and a heads up from Facebook. Facebook has a little bit of a delay, I think, so maybe that's not going to work as well, but let's see. All right, so good. A lot of folks on Twitch are saying thank you, or I'm sorry, they're saying the sound is fine. That's great news. All right, anybody on YouTube? Let's see if I can see breakdown here. Yep. All right, cool. Hey, how you doing, Sid? If you can hear me well on YouTube, is the volume okay? You said it's audible, but is the volume good? Because I just need to make sure I move my mic to be closer so that the audio comes through okay. Let's do a couple other things here. All right, good. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So if you have been watching the stream, you have an idea of what we're working on. We're working on a spaceship, which is this thing in the middle here. And we also are working on a station as well, which is outside of it, right? So basically we're going to have some compositions of this thing being built. And today we'll go ahead and create kind of the built version of it. And then also we're going to have one that's kind of completed as well. So we're just going to do both of those. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and hide the station. We're going to work on the station last, but we're just going to continue to work on this and get it to look better. So last time we went in, the first time we did this, so this is I think the third stream. Yeah, it's the third one in the series. The first time we did this, we kind of started out blocking it out, and then last time we refined it a little bit more. Today I think we're pretty much done with the general kind of shape of it. We're not going to modify the shape. I think this is good enough for it to be this way. And maybe this ship houses, I don't know, maybe 100 people or so, scientists or people that are going and exploring space. And this is in kind of a futuristic setting where we are traveling in space, and also in a setting where we are building this thing up out in space as well. So it's not being, this thing doesn't land on a planet. It has a spaceport, which we determined to be over here, that launches smaller ships that land to the surface of the planet, and then the rest of it pretty much always stays in space. So it's a space-faring kind of vehicle and does not land. All right, so let's see. We got some questions here. Gredran, hello. Doing ZBrush to do polymodeling. Yeah, I use ZBrush for polymodeling all the time, and I use it for hard surface modeling, and I also use it for organic stuff too. I haven't done an organic stream. Maybe the next one I'll do an organic subject. I like working in organic forms as well, but it seems like there's quite a few people doing streams on those, so I kind of want to make sure that it's kind of well balanced for you guys. So, but I'll do an organic one next time. But yeah, ZBrush is awesome for hard surface stuff. And just to show you guys, let me go to my page here real quick, if I can find it, of course. Where did you go? I've got like 100 browser windows open, so Hopefully it'll be the right one. Yep, this one right here. So if you look at some of my works here, I do a lot of mechanical designs and mechs and spaceships and cars and whatnot. So this guy over here was 100% done in ZBrush. This one was about 90% done in ZBrush. This one, I kind of started doing hard surface on ZBrush when I worked on this mech right here. So you can see kind of the panel looping happening up here. That's when I started. So this one started out in Maya but ended up in ZBrush. This was in ZBrush as well. So you can see that as time went on, I'm doing more and more work in ZBrush. And not only just mechs, but also vehicles. I did a robot, I think, in the first stream. You guys can see that. And also you can go in here and look at some vehicles that I've done in ZBrush as well. So here's a spinner that I did in ZBrush by myself. And then I also did another one, which I'm still kind of coming up with good renders for in ZBrush. So, sorry, I'm sorry, in the last stream that I did. So here's the older one and the newer one. I don't even have it on my website yet. I'm still doing renders on it. And you can always go to my Instagram to find out more stuff that I do. And here's another robot that I recently did. This is 100% ZBrush, also rendered in ZBrush and just composited a little bit in Photoshop. So ZBrush is awesome for modeling. It's awesome for, here's another one. This is a drone that I did for the last spinner that we did, and this was done in ZBrush as well. So personally, I like ZBrush as a modeling tool. I think it gives me a lot more freedom. I can get a lot more done. I don't have to select vertices and move them, or even with soft select in Maya, it's kind of tedious to be creating in that mode. It's great as a production tool, but from an artistic perspective, I like working in ZBrush a lot more. That's kind of that. All right, bunch of stuff. I mean, I sculpt all the time as well. I do organic stuff. I'll show you guys some of them at some point. All right, very nice. Thank you for that. Okay, and yeah, you can kit bash too. You can kit bash like a champ, and we'll do some of that as well. Let's see here. No, I don't. That's the. I think Sid Rock is asking, do I usually sketch in 2D or do I just work directly in 3D? And that's a good question. I do sketch. I carry a sketchbook with me all the time. I sketch all the time. It's fun to do. I also do some sketching on the iPad on Procreate, which also is kind of a cool thing to be able to do. But lately I've just kind of been starting here and doing my shape generation and kind of development of form directly in ZBrush, and it gives me a lot of freedoms. So I go back and forth, but most of the times, especially when I'm on a deadline, I just jump right into ZBrush and start doing the work there. All right, Doug says good afternoon. Good afternoon, Doug. Hey, Joe, man, how are you? Joe Mena in the house. Good to hear from you. Hope you're doing okay. Hunkering down, maybe getting out of the house a little bit today. So awesome to see you guys here. All right, so let's get going. So here we've kind of, again, gotten the main shape down. And also I'm going to kind of duplicate this and put it in a folder. And let's call it ant. I think we were calling this thing ant because somebody said it looked like an ant. So we'll just call it that for now. We might change it later. So here, let's split this two parts. So you guys can see that this spaceship is actually composed of very few parts. There's 3 different parts. The back, this part right here, let me turn transparency on so you can see it. So there's this kind of tail part, and then there's this part, which is the engines, and then there's the front part. And at some point, I was also contemplating whether or not this would separate out. Let me hide the original one here. This would separate out as its own thing, you know, maybe does some sort of exploration and then comes and docks back into this back section. The only problem with that, of course, is that I was saying that the spaceships would launch from here, so I'd have to figure out a way to launch spaceships out of the front portion too. So with concept design, you always are thinking about practical applications of your subject matter. So you're always thinking about, okay, well, how would this work, as well as what it would look like. All right. So now that we have all this, what I'm going to do here is not work on the folder. We'll just hide the folder for now, and we're going to work on this whole thing, right? And what we're going to do is we're going to create a version of this that's going to be in the construction kind of mode, right? So right now it looks like it's kind of finished. If I hide the wireframes and if I look at the silhouette of it, it looks pretty recognizable from a silhouette perspective here. And so, you know, in the show, if we see this thing in some movie or game, we'll know what it is just from its silhouette. I think it's got some recognizable aspects to it, so we're good there. So what we're going to do next is we're going to build the inside of this. And so a good example of this would be the Death Star, right? So in the first Star Wars, and let me see if I can, again, bring this up. So let me look up Death Star. Right, so in the first Star Wars, we saw the Death Star kind of like this in a kind of finished form, right? And then I think it was in the second one or the third one, I forget, where we actually see the Death Star kind of in this mode, right? With all the different levels and all the different construction levels. And this is kind of visually really fun. I remember when I first saw this, I was like, wow, that is such a cool thing. So how do we do this? I mean, it looks pretty complex, right? And it would take a long time to create this with the spaceship, but luckily in ZBrush there's some capabilities that make it very easy to do that. So we'll do that, and also we want to greeble this thing up. So right now it's just facets, and we want to get these facets to be greeble looking. All right, so we had a bunch of people saying stuff. Let's see, Sid, cool. Joe, so happy to have you here, man. Let's see, Rudy's on here. Hey, Rudy. All right, so Rudy's asking a good question. What about the videos before this one, right? What about all the previous videos that led up to this? So if you go to ZBrush Live, right? So ZBrush, pixologic.com/ZBrush Live, it brings you to the ZBrush page here, and it tells you all the different artists that are going to be coming up. I think I'm in here somewhere. I think I saw it earlier. Here we go. So that's today, and that's me. But if you want to find anything from before now, you can always go to presenters, and then in the presenter list you can find me, which I think I'm somewhere in the middle. About, where am I? I don't know if these are alphabetical or how they're organized. And let me see here. I should come up here somewhere. I'm probably passing by it like 3 or 4 times. A lot of people got added on, so there's a big list of people on here. All right, where am I not? Why am I not seeing myself in here? Should be. I probably passed myself like 5 times while I'm looking at everybody's face. And I'm also using my. Here we go. Here I am. Okay, so if you go to my page, right, over here, and you can see a little bit about me, but then if you scroll down, they're all the different streams from before. So here is the car, the spinner that we did in season 2, and then this is season 3 working on this. So here's the first episode, here's the second episode. So this is one way to find me. Another way to find me is if you go to the YouTube channel, Pixologic's YouTube channel, you can filter. You can go ahead and just type in my name here. If you just type in Kermaco, you can filter by my streams on here, so you can see them that way as well. So there's different ways of doing it. I'm sure there's a way to filter it on Twitch as well. So that's how you can watch the previous episodes. So Rudy, thanks for asking that question. All right, and let's see. Yeah, I didn't make it. I kind of made it a little bit asymmetrical. The person was asking about symmetry. Yeah, I made it a little bit asymmetrical just by adding this little piece over here. But I plan on adding, when I do kitbash, adding parts to this. I'll go ahead and make it more asymmetrical with the kitbash parts. Okay. All right, so Adrash Anand is asking if the pandemic somehow affected the 3D industry. I'm sure it did. A lot of movies are on hold right now. Some games are coming out. I think Last of Us had a little bit of a delay, but it's coming out. I think that was one of the games I'm looking forward to playing. But yeah, of course, the pandemic has had an effect on every industry. Everybody in the world has been affected by this thing. So yeah, it's kind of slow work-wise, but I'm sure once everything starts kind of kicking back up, we'll be back to normal. But I've been using that time for a lot of things. So I teach, so my teaching went online, which is good. I mean, I'm good with teaching online. I have no problems with that at all. Actually, I kind of prefer it in some ways. So there was that, and then also with other types of work, I think freelance work, it's been a little bit slow, but I'm using that time to learn new things, which I'll be kind of incorporating into the stream as time goes on. Okay, and then let's see, anything else? Okay. All right. So good. Let's go ahead and get going there. If you guys have questions, just type them in. I'll stop every once in a while and read them. I'm sorry I spent a lot of time at the beginning, but just want to make sure I say hi to everybody and catch everybody up to where we are. Okay, so now that I have this, okay, what I want to do here is I just want to create a Dynamesh version of it, right? So I did this earlier, but made some modifications. So we're going to do another Dynamesh version. So here, I'm just going to go to a resolution of 1024. Let's just see how that looks. Blur of 2 is good, and let's project our initial one onto what we got. And I don't know why this didn't take 1024. Let's try it again. All right, here we go, and let's Dynamesh it. Okay, so basically that's just going to create a Dynamesh version of this. Also, the other thing that this is going to do once it gets Dynameshed is, what is all this funky stuff? That was weird. All right, well, maybe we won't project on. And let's do this one more time. So with Dynameshing it, it's going to, remember these were 3 parts, it's going to make it all into one part. Yep, this is kind of more what I was expecting. And if I go to polyframe, I'll see that this is the way it is. And just to make sure, if I do a cross section of it here, you can see, let me do double on here. I think I have double up here somewhere. Let me do this while I'm thinking about it. Store custom UI. All right, and there's double, so we can see inside. So you can see those parts are no longer 2 separate parts. It's all one piece. And the reason why I'm doing that is because for what I'm going to do next, I need it to be Dynameshed as one piece, right? So now that I've got this Dynameshed as one piece, I'm going to go ahead and start adding some greebles to it. So what I want to do first is I want to get it kind of a uniform greebly type of look to it. So for that, I'm just going to use surface. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with this capability in ZBrush, but it's really cool, the surface noise feature. So I'm just going to go to noise here. And that opens up this little kind of mini version of an app in here called Noisemaker, right? And in Noisemaker, you can manipulate the object just like you can in the main viewport, but it's a smaller viewport, and there's a recenter, frame, zoom, and all that stuff. And the navigation is the same as in ZBrush. And what I want to do here is I want to snap this, so I'm looking at it from the top. One other thing I should do here is also turn perspective off. I don't know if that makes a difference in Noisemaker or not, but I just want to make sure perspective is off, and you guys will see why. All right, so here is the object, looking at it from the top, right? And this basically allows you to add noise. So if I were just to do normal noise, it would look something like this, which is not really what I want. I don't want kind of a bumpy, let me zoom on this thing a bit more. I don't want a bumpy looking spaceship. I don't want this kind of pattern on it. So I'm going to turn that noise down, right? So I'm not going to use that noise at all. But what I do want to use is an alpha. So when I click on this button, what that does is it basically just goes into brings up a browser image, not a browser, but an Explorer. And so if you're using a Mac or it opens up a Finder, and you just basically want to find some files. And what I have here is I just have a bunch of displacement maps. Some I've gotten from a tutorial that Joseph Trust had online on Z Classroom, and I'll show you guys the link to that in a minute. Some that I've gotten from another tutorial that I have that are 16-bit alphas, and then some I created by a program called JDisplacement. So I'm just going to use one of those, and I'll just bring one of those in so you guys could see what it looks like. So let's choose this one right here and click on Open. And that basically just puts this alpha over here, right? So right now I've got this alpha, and the orientation of the spaceship matters, right? So it matters that I'm looking at it this way because now it's projecting, and I don't know, I need to be able to zoom in further here. Maybe let's do this. You can see here that it's basically projecting this alpha or this displacement map right on the top part of it. And so here what you can do is also you can see a little bit of that bumpiness too, and that's because of this mixed basic noise. We want that to be off too. So now all I'm seeing is this alpha on top of the spaceship, right? And I can choose the intensity, so how deep this goes. So there we go. So you can see automatically, right, just by doing a very few steps, I've got a bunch of really cool greebles on the ship already, right? So then I can just play around with the strength a little bit here, and that looks pretty good. And maybe I can start out with a bigger alpha scale here and maybe lesser of strength. And with the bigger alpha scale, what I'm getting here is I'm getting this bigger kind of displacement on here, right? And let me just increase the intensity. And by the way, I can go the other way too. Like if I want these lines to go in, the strength can go in a positive or a negative direction. So here, let's say I'm going to choose that for now, and I'm going to go in the other direction. I want those lines to go out, not in, for this type of displacement. All right, so this is looking okay. I kind of don't like this thing over here, and you can always offset these things too. Let me just go to 0 here and see if Z offset does it. Nope. And maybe I'll just make it a little bit bigger, the scale, and then that'll get rid of that aspect of it. Here we go. Yep. Okay, so this is looking good. Let's look at it from the bottom. Okay, so basically what I'm getting on the top and the bottom are the same, but since the spaceship has different shape to it, it kind of changes it up. So that's good enough for now. I'm going to go ahead and apply this to my model. If I click OK here, what that'll do is it'll apply it to the model here so I can see it. But this does not really apply it to the geometry yet. I still have to apply it to mesh. So for now, I'm not going to. For now, I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I'm going to bring this to the bottom too here. And I'm just going to create a copy of this, right? So now I've got a copy of this first one. Now with this copy, I can go ahead and go back to surface. And it's going to have basically the same stuff because it's a duplicate copy of it. And I'm going to apply it to mesh. So now it's applied that geometry to the mesh. It's kind of done a weird thing here in the front, which I don't know if I like very much. But I'm just going to go with it for now. We might change this up a little bit later. All right, I saw a bunch of stuff going on here. All right, so Unreal versus future impact in the industry. Well, Unreal 5 is pretty amazing. I just saw the ray tracing capabilities of it, and all I can say is the next generation of games coming on the new Xbox and the PS5 are going to be out of control. They're going to be amazing, and PC games are going to be really cool. And so the RTX technology just came out with NVIDIA, and I think future NVIDIA cards will even be maybe less expensive and more powerful. So what we're going to be seeing is going to be pretty cool about that. So, okay. WTF is that drawing? Are you talking about the displacement map? Crazy Dave, I'm not going to ban you for saying that. No worries. Okay. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's a spaceship. So if you tune in from before, when you watch this over, you can see what it is, and we'll talk about it. Okay. Does the surface noise create different polygroup sets at all? Sidrock, it does not. However, you can do polygroups by normal here. And if you put in a desired angle, then it will polygroup them for you if you want. And then you can do panel loops and all sorts of stuff. But for now, we're just going to, I'm just doing some big paneling over here. And man, this front part is really bugging the crap out of me. So I'm sorry. I'm going to have to change a few things here. So I'm going to delete this duplicate. Sorry for doing this, but it really just want to make sure that the design is working. I kind of want to get this to some sort of a final version, so excuse a little bit of editing here that I'm going to do. And so this front part is what I don't like, which is over here. So I'm going to change the scale a little bit of the alpha to get that to go away. There we go. That did it? No, still there. Here we go. That made it go away. So let's see what it looks like from the top. All right, so we're basically just putting in some really kind of major details here. Actually, let me go a little bit the other way. See if... Yeah, I think this is good enough right here. Nope, I got that thing back. The problem is I like what's going on in the back, but the front part of the mullet is not really agreeing with me. Let's see here. And this alpha scale, by the way, this is a good thing to know too with ZBrush. If your slider is moving too far, like when I was magnifying, when I was changing the scale here, it's moving too much. And if I want to do it, well, this is the strength, not the scale. If I want to do it a little bit, right? So this is a lot of movement here. If I just want to move a little bit, if you just go to the top of that slider, this other slider appears, which does more minute adjustments. So here we go. This looks exactly the way I want it. Let's just do a quick whirl. Yep, okay. That's good. And then duplicate it. And then so with the duplicate, I'm going to apply the noise. So it's going to apply it to the geometry, right? So here, let's go to surface again and apply to mesh. So now I've got it. And now what I want to do is I want to apply another noise to it. So I'll go to noise again, edit. Right, so it's applying the same one, but I don't want this one. Notice that my image stays the same. And here, this way, I'm going to rotate the spaceship this way, and then go in and choose another alpha. So we'll choose, how about this one? Right here, right? So that alpha loads in, and you can see that alpha gets added to what's there from before. So that's looking good, but we want to make the scale of that one a lot smaller, so we get a lot of surface details, and maybe increase the strength a little bit, right? And I think the strength, I want to go in the other direction, have these things be poking out. All right, so yeah, that's looking a lot more like what I want, so that's good. That's perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and increase that strength a little bit more to get that. I think that's a little bit too much. Let's go ahead and play around with the scale. Again, I don't want it to look like it's automatic. I want it to look as kind of naturally added as possible. All right, so that looks good. Okay, let's accept that. And let's apply it to the mesh. And now I'm going to do something completely different where, right now you can see that when you apply it, it's basically doing a projection. It's not even using the UVs. So I'm going to do the same kind of thing, but I'm going to project from this side. So I'm getting these streaks, which are okay, but I also want to get some greebles that are facing this way too. So for that, I'm just going to go ahead and click on noise again, edit, maybe pick a different alpha this time. And notice that I've got the orientation of my spaceship this way, right here, right? Not like before. And let's choose, how about this one right here? And these are all different alphas that I generated earlier. I've got a library full of them, and I can use them all the time. So that looks okay from this angle, but I think it's kind of, yeah, that's okay. But I'm kind of getting, I have a lot of these horizontal and vertical lines, so maybe not this one. Let's pick a different one. Let's see, there's one with more angles. I think this might be interesting. Let's choose that one. Yep, that one's kind of cool. So it's giving me a lot of these kind of cool greebles, like so. And let's see if I can, again, the strength, I can go in the other direction, so they're poking out. That's looking cool, right? So that's all perfect like that. Okay, so I'm going to accept that. And I'm also going to apply this to the mesh. All right, so right now I basically have my model with all this displacement on it. And what I want to do is maybe do a little bit of editing on this. Like maybe I don't want certain things to be in certain places. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back in time to where I had nothing, right? I have no displacements on my model, which is, I guess, here. And go ahead and hit Control and click on this. And when I do that, that basically adds a history point. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my history brush, which was added in ZBrush 2020. And let's turn off symmetry here. And I can go in, and then I can move... Did I completely? I did, didn't I? All right, we'll do it again. The good thing is there's plenty of stuff to learn. If you watch it again, you'll get to see me do certain things over again. Maybe they'll help you remember it better. But I've got a bunch of questions here. Yep, I can use Morph Target as well. That was a good question or a good point brought up by Kushel. Thank you. And yeah, Gandalf is saying only use the offset. So Gandalf apparently has used that before. You are staying true to your wizard name. There is no way of making the noisemaker window full screen, Sid Rock. There is no way to do that. It is tiny, but it's actually not bad. I mean, for what you need it to do, it works fine. Yeah, you can use Adrash Anand is asking if you can use a different alpha at the same time for a different part of the mesh. Not at the same time, but you can use a different alpha, and you can also mask certain parts so it doesn't affect it. Okay, so Babylon 5, Mimbari. All right, cool. Yeah, Scorpion, fellow Babylon 5 fan here. All right, so let's go do this all over again. So we're going to go ahead and pick a couple of alphas. Sometimes when you repeat stuff, you get better results. So let's see if we are going to be in that mode today. So here we're going to go ahead and edit this noise starting from scratch. This one was the initial one. And let's go ahead and add the same one on the side. Why not? Okay, so we're going to turn this alpha off, turn it on again. We're completely doing this from scratch, which is okay. There's the alpha. So now this is the alpha we have from this side. Maybe this one's not a very good one for the side. Let's try it and see if it works better. Well, actually, before we even do that, let's resize it. So one of the things I really like about ZBrush is that there's a lot of kind of playtime of, especially when you're doing concept designs. There's a lot of time where you can just play around on your model to see if something is working or not, right? And you can do a little bit of what if stuff on it. And you can see if things look good with what you've got or not. So this is looking really good this way. And I knew we would get something better if we tried again. I really like the paneling here. Let me see if the strength is good enough. I want the strength to be good, but just enough, right? Okay, so that's good. And yep, that's looking good. Let's see, okay here. So we've got that first initial pass. It's even looking okay on the side, right? So we've basically created a whole new type of look than what we had before. And we'll just go ahead and apply this to the mesh. Well, actually, not yet. Let me duplicate it first. And then apply it to the mesh. All right, and then I'm going to hide that first one. So this is the only one we have. I think I've got transparency on. I'll turn that off. Okay, so now I've basically got this pattern. I'm going to do one from the side. So I'm just turning this to the side here, going back to surface, going back to noise, going to edit. And now we're going to choose a different noise, but I want to do it from the side. So again, I'm just going to rotate this so I'm facing this way. Go here. And let's choose, how about this one right here? right? So there's another alpha that's being applied and being projected this way, right? And let's go ahead and take a look at the strength of this, maybe make it a little bit weaker, maybe about there. And let's go ahead and choose the scale. I'm really liking this pattern over here on the side, but maybe not there. Somebody said use the offset, which doesn't seem to be doing the trick either. Maybe for this one we use Y offset, no, X offset, no, none of the offsets are working. So let me set those to 0. I don't know why they're not working. They should work. But anyway, doesn't matter. We can always change the scale here, like so. I mean, this looks really kind of cool here towards the back. I'm really liking what that's doing over here. Let's see, does that mess up my front parts? Strength is a little bit too much. You kind of don't want this banding to happen, so you can fix that with just going down at the level of strength. And again, here I'm just going to use that top slider just to add a little bit of that type of look to it. Yeah, I don't know why the offsets are not working, but I'm probably doing something wrong. All right, that's looking good. Let's go ahead and click on OK. I've kind of got not too much going on in the middle part here, but that's okay. All right, so now this is auto-saving right now, and then it's applied it, and let's apply this to the mesh, and now I've got this going on right here, okay? So now I've got kind of the spaceship the way it's going to look more or less, and I'm going to do that other thing that I did before, but before I do that, again, I'm just going to duplicate my model, so I've got a version of it that just in case I want to come back to, I can work on it. Okay, and then here is where I'm going to have that be the file version, and this version that I was working on before, right? So this one, if I go back in time, it goes back to being completely empty, and so what I'm going to do here is go forward to this point, make sure that my surface is applied, and I could have had a morph target or whatever, and I could manually erase some of this stuff. But what I'm going to do now is, and this is going to be pretty cool, is I'm going to create a surface that goes on top of what's here, right? So this is all going to be maybe one material. So I'm going to use noise again to create a surface that goes on top. Okay, so one more time. Yeah, somebody's saying time to save, and you're right. I would save it, but I noticed that ZBrush did its quick save by itself, so I do have a copy of it somewhere. So here we'll just go ahead and go to edit the noise again, and this time we'll pick yet another alpha, and this one maybe will be tubing or something like that. Let's see, I've got one that I created that's more kind of tubing. Maybe this one. Right, so there is all that information being added, and what we want to do here is, let's see what that's looking like. It's kind of hard to see what you're adding because of, let's amplify the strength a bit, and let's choose, let me zoom in a bit to see what this is doing, and I'm just messing around with the scale a little bit here, like so. And that scale looks good. Let's see, can I rotate this thing? Let me see if I can rotate it. Nope. Again, it's not doing the rotations and whatnot, and I'm sure, you know, I'll figure out why this is happening at some point, but right now it's not working. Yep, the offset slider, that's right, Sidrock. Looks like you have used this before. And yep, the offset slider is what we're going to be doing next. And that basically, what that'll do is do this, right? So basically it will create this type of a thing where your an alpha map basically is just a grayscale image. And as you move the offset, you see this red line. It's basically just moving that up and down. So you're choosing parts of what you want, right? So here, I'm just going to go maybe about to here like that. Right, and now I just basically have more of a skeletal kind of a look to my spaceship like that. And if I increase the strength just a little bit more, it protrudes it out more. Let's see here. And that's good. So I'm going to click on OK. And now it's going to give me this, right? So now I'm getting into what I wanted before, which is kind of this thing in construction mode where it's being built, right? If I apply this to mesh, by the way, it's going to not work, right? So let's do that. So if I say apply to mesh, it's going to actually apply to the mesh that's there, but it's not going to have those gaps. But I do want these gaps. So I'm just going to kind of leave this like this for now. But there's other things I can do to get more of the constructed look, right? So right now, I'm just going to say, all right, this is good. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this one more time. So now I've got a third copy of it over here. I'm going to hide this one. And for this one, I'm going to apply to mesh, but I'm going to do a trick. So here, I'm going to go into geometry. Okay, I'm going to go to Dynamesh, and with Dynamesh, I'm going to turn Dynamesh back on. All right, so that basically created a Dynamesh version of this. And now, if I go to Surface and click on Apply, it's still going to apply to everything. However, if I go back to Dynamesh and I hold Alt down and click on Subtract, it's going to subtract this from the shape. So I'm going to wait here for a few minutes. It's doing a Dynamesh union subtraction, and so let's see what result that's going to give us. All right, so now we've got this result, right? So we've basically cut through from the top, we've basically cut through the model, and we have this cross section, right? So this is kind of a really nifty trick. So now I've got kind of the walls, but I want the levels, right? And to get the levels, it's the same kind of a thing where I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to go back to noise. I'm going to go to edit, right? And I'm going to just turn this thing on its side because right now I want my alphas to cut this way, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and choose a different alpha. And for that, I'm going to choose, again, one that has some horizontal lines on it. Maybe let's choose this one. It's pretty complex. It might work. So there it is. It's giving me kind of this type of, now I've got my floors, right? I've got the different floors. And I can go ahead and change my alpha scale to where it looks like, I said 100 people or so. So, you know, maybe this many floors, you know, so I'm just going to turn it this way and just play around with my alpha scale until I get kind of the floors that I want. So now I'm getting kind of that same look that I had with the Death Star that I saw earlier, where it's kind of in construction mode, and I can just move this around to see what I got. And that looks okay, so I'm going to click on OK here again. Right, and now I get this, right? Let's see. It's looking okay. Like so. And let's see what happens if I just apply this to the mesh. All right, this is what I wanted right here. However, it's a little bit poofy, right? So it's kind of got a little bit of this kind of poofiness to it that I don't want. I want it to be crisp like this. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring down the smooth normals to 0. Let's see if that does it. No, it's still a little bit poofy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same trick I did earlier. I'm just going to have, okay, this looks good. Let's go ahead and hold Alt down and click on Subtract for Dynamesh. And let's see what kind of result we get here. And again, it's adjusting the mesh. By the way, this is something that here we go. This is exactly what I want. Right, so for something like this, you want to make sure that you save often, because these operations could make ZBrush crash. And then there are some kind of straggly kind of pieces here that you might want to get rid of. But the good news is that since this is in space, right, a lot of these kind of things will float. They won't fall on the ground. So that works really well. And of course, in here, you can always go in here and put a smaller version of it in the center, or you can edit and do this. But getting this kind of a result this fast is kind of a really cool thing to do. And I don't know any other programs that allow you to do this kind of stuff. So I'm pretty happy with being able to do this. And what's really cool here is that now if I bring my space port back up, right? So here's my spaceport, like so, right now. So it totally looks like it's in construction zone, right? So here's that, and I'll do a quick BPR render. And here I'm just using a non-photorealistic filter, which is kind of a good way to see your sculpture before, or your model before you go ahead and kind of export it out and render it in Keyshot or some other program. So here, I mean, if this looks like, you know, this totally sells the idea of it being in construction mode up in space somewhere. So I can use this. And of course, I always still have that previous version. I can bring that up, right? So this kind of maybe is another stage of the construction, right? So I can see some of the inside parts here and then not see some of the other inside parts. And I've got the full model too. I can bring that up. And maybe if I turn transparency on, I can do kind of this transparency image with all the construction, right? So again, just a few minutes to get something really, really cool and convincing, you know, in what I want to do. So here, if I render this, of course, it's going to show me the outside part, and this is looking very Battlestar Galactica. It's looking very Babylon 5, so we're good. We're good with that. All right, I saw a lot of questions come up, so let's take a look at what's going on here. Yeah, Scorpion Core Universe, that's true. You can make it into a thing that's being stripped as well as being built. So you can go the other way. Like you can do a ship on a seashore that's being stripped, and you can use the same effect, and it would work. Right. All right. I see. All right. Late to the party, but wow. Okay, cool. Wei, welcome to the stream. Gandalf, thank you. Sidrock, yeah, it does. It looks pretty cool. I know when I was playing around with this and I discovered this trick, I just was like, wow, this is going to, you know, create a whole new type of art that's going to be on ZBrush Central, and I was really happy to have kind of figured out with the spaceship. But of course, I'll be doing this with cars and all sorts of other things too. It's a real quick and dirty way to create kind of an inside cross section of something with just a few parts. Can you retain the detail with dynamism? Well, I mean, I basically, this is a Dynamesh model, right? So if I go to the polyframe here, let me go back and hide all the other things. So let's go ahead and hide the space station and the full thing and this part. So this is the one part we're dealing with right now. Let me turn transparency off too. So you can see all this is Dynameshed, right? And it's actually not bad geometry. I mean, if you zoom in, it's going to be an issue. But you can clean it up if you have a shot where it's going to zoom in on a certain portion of the spaceship. Let's say it's going to zoom in on the bridge being built or something like that, right? So you can you can clean up the geometry. I mean, it looks a little bit messy over here, but actually, for just a few keystrokes, I've got, for looking at it from this angle right here, the geometry is actually not bad. And of course, you can zero mesh it, and you can do other things with it as well. But right now, we're just kind of in this state of having this object. All right. So all this is asymmetrical. If you want it to be symmetrical, you can always mirror and weld it to get a symmetrical shape. But right now, I think we're happy with what we've got. All right, so let's go back to our original one, which is kind of the one with all the shapes here. And for this one, at this point, I can go in and start doing a little bit of cleanup, right? So I can always use the flatten, H-polish here to go in and start, maybe fixing up some of these surfaces that I don't want to have a certain shape. Or I can also, I did what I did before with the history brush. Or the other trick that somebody mentioned was to have a morph target, which actually is a pretty good idea. And then you can basically use the morph brush or use the slider to get it to be what you want it to be. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We're doing good. We're about an hour in. Anybody questions? No? Cool. All right. So right now we kind of have some features of the spaceship already kind of done, and I kind of don't know if I really like these rivety looking dots over here, so let's go ahead and start getting rid of those. So I'm kind of thinking of if there's a kind of a quicker way of doing this. Let's see, if I undo this all the way back, what do I have? I've got this whole thing. I think I've got a version of it earlier that has, yeah, I think this is it without the noise, right? So I can still turn the noise off of this. And also I think with the history brush, there's a way to do it so you basically are getting the history from another subtool. Let me see if I can get that going. I forget if that works or not, but I should have a version of this thing without any noise on it. I think this is it. I'm going to duplicate that. Not duplicate. And bring this all the way down. All right, make sure none of the other ones are on. Okay, so I've got this one. That's basically the one that has nothing on it. So I think that is something I can turn the surface noise off of this one, and I won't have anything. Well, I have a little bit of noise, but that's fine. Okay, so this is good. And what I want to do here is, let's see if this works. I'm going to store this history here, and then go to my new one, which is this one. No, oh, I got a full clean one here. How about that? So full clean one, and then the one that has all the details, right? So I don't know what this is, but let's just move this all the way up here. We don't need it. Okay, so this is the one with the detail, and I've got one that has nothing on it. Is that correct? Yep, so no detail. And let me solo here so I'm actually seeing. No, maybe not that one. This one? Not that one either. Usually when I'm working on these things, I name them so I can figure things out. Okay, here we go. So it's these two. So 20 is the one that has nothing in it and has the memorized history. And then this one, it has these dots. And let's see if the history brush works with this. Yep. So apparently what I had was the alpha was pushing in, right? So when I'm doing this, it's bringing it back to normal, but it's bringing it back to normal with a little bit of protrusion, but you know, it's okay. This is, you know, I'm glad I remembered how to do this. This is totally a very cool feature. So what I'm going to do here is, so I can kind of get these surfaces to work better, I'm going to use that trick of seeing if I can polygroup these so I can separate out the polygroups. Let's see if that works. So here I'm going to go to polygroups, and let's turn on polyframe, and let's do polygroup by normal. Let's do the default, see what that gets us. It's going to take a little bit of time because this is a pretty, you know, I think it's about 1000, 1024 is what I use for the Dynamesh. Right, let's see. Hopefully this doesn't take forever. It shouldn't. All right, while this is happening, let's see if there are any questions. What are the differences and advantages of using Morph Target as opposed to History Recall? Sid Rock is asking. I think Morph Target is can only work within the same model, so I couldn't do what I just did, where I can have the history recorded on another subtool and be able to, you know, do the changes on the one subtool. Looks like this is taking a bit of time. Let's go ahead and take a look at Task Manager here to see if we're mostly dead or fully dead. It looks like it's still doing its thing, so we'll let it do its thing. Doesn't look like it's compute intensive. Oh, it's done. All right, it didn't really do much. after all that. So maybe maybe I won't use this method. I mean, I could re-Dynamesh this at a lower subdivision level, but I think at this point the best recourse for me to continue on for what I want to do is to mask the areas that I want to fix, like so. Maybe choose a bigger brush here so I can do this. Right, so and then just invert that mask. And just use the H polish brush to just bring these to be the same level. Also, by the way, another thing I could do is I could use another brush that works good with this is Trim Normal. So basically just goes off this normal and just gets rid of those. And Trim Normal is really good for doing this thing that I just did. Just want to make sure this part is masked. There we go. That fixed it right there. Maybe start from here. Yep, that's got done. Start from here. And start from here. Right, so that's a really cool way of kind of getting rid of these greebles. Right, looks like I ate up into this over here, but just a little bit of smoothing will fix it. Let's see if I can just do this. Yeah. If as long as your object is coplanar or your faces are coplanar, this works really well. And if they're not, you can always use H polish, and H polish works good too. Just we'll beat it down. So I just want to get rid of those rivety kind of shapes. And I could have done that when I projected the alpha, but I'm not really going to worry about that right now. And this part that I just did, this whole part that I did, I probably will do again at some point when I'm not on camera, so I can have more time of seeing if there's another, alpha that works better. Right now I just use some random ones, but of course you can always design your own alphas. Let's see, I've got some questions here. Gandalf is asking, I've lost the beginning. Did you import the model from? No, this thing is all ZBrush. No importing. All ZBrush. If you want to see how I made this previous shape, you can watch the initial videos. You can watch the part 1 and part 2 of the season, and you can see how we made it. So yeah, this is 100% in ZBrush. To project the cuts that you made, let's see, would you use a custom brush? I think is the name. A conform brush. I don't know if I've used the conform brush before. Which one's that one? That's what I like about ZBrush too, is there's always something you don't know. There's always something you can learn. Is there a conform brush? Let's look at the C's here. Nope. C. Conform. I don't see it. See, curve, conform. I don't see a conform brush. Is it in, where is the conform brush? All right. Let's see. The match brush. Which one's the match brush? I don't know if I've used the match brush either. I'm just basically using H polish, and I used, the other one I used to get the kind of the, was this one right here, which is Trim Normal. And what basically that does is once you establish the plane that you want to be on, it will make everything on that level. So here I'm just kind of doing a little bit of cleanup, a little bit of sculpting. And see, those rivets maybe look okay on the bottom. I mean, they're not very visible. Let's see if I can get all these with the Trim Normal. No, there's a bit of a change of angle. Might be able to do a few at a time this way. And you can see here some of the corners, there's like a little bit of stuff. But again, we're just going to look at the spaceship. We're not going to do any close-ups of this. And if we are, then we can completely rebuild it to get that close-up. So here I'm just kind of getting rid of these with smooth, and then H polish just gets rid of them completely. I think that's kind of the best way to do this. I just came up with a new workflow. So the workflow I did was just smoothing first and then H polish to just finish it off. And that kind of creates a nice surface too. and you do H polish from both angles, you get the sharp angle back. So same thing here, just smooth these off like so, and H polish to fix it. All right, so now I basically have this kind of all planar again, and I can put a kit bash part or whatever in there. And by the time I'm done, you know, using kit bash parts I'll do next week. By the time I'm done with kit bash parts and everything like that, I'll basically have the spaceship done. The only other thing I got to start thinking about is, all right, well, how am I going to have this be, how am I going to color this? How am I going to paint it as well? And so I got to come up with a smart way of doing that too. And probably I'll use Spotlight to do it. Right, so here I'm just basically removing some of the greebly things from this one area, just to get back to the normal way that it was. And again, some of these are not quads or not planar, so I'm just kind of making them as planar as I can. And again, if there's a defect or something that I don't like, I can always pop a kit bash part in there to hide that specific part. Okay, so here I'm just basically going to work on the surface a little bit. Let's see, any questions coming in? Do I use layers often? Do you mean layers like layers in here? These guys? These layers? Sometimes I do. They're good for certain things. Yeah, sometimes I do. Depends. The history brush did work. Sidrock, it did work, yeah. So here, if I go back to and use the history brush, it did work. However, the problem was that these parts are pushed in, so it doesn't really work that well. A quick way to work, actually, if I wanted to make it work, that's a good kind of problem to show you how to solve here too. Let's say I do want to make that history brush work, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the other model. So I'm going to go back to this model that had the history point. I'm going to hold Control and unhistory it, right? So there it is. And what I want to do here is I want to just deflate this a little bit so the size is smaller, right? So scale doesn't work, by the way. If you scale it down, it doesn't work because scale scales from a specific point. What I want to do is I want to shrink everything down. So scale's not going to work, but under deformation, there is an inflate. So if I go the negative direction of inflate, it makes everything a little bit smaller. So here I'm just going to deflate this a little bit, maybe to about 0.5 or 0.4. And it creates this weird funky stuff on the edges over here, but I'm not really going to care about that right now. I'm just going to grab this as history and save it. And then when I go back to this other model and use the history brush, right? So now it's going to conform to that surface, and this time it's going inwards, right? You guys can see that. So here, notice when I do this, now it's going inwards. So maybe I deflated it too much. So let's go and fix that. So go back here, undo this, Control Z. I'm going to just mute this for a second. I'll be right back.
Call from Los Angeles unit.
Sorry about Sorry about that. That's basically my kid's school calling. All right. So now what I want to do here is I'm going to undo that. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, I guess I'm doing okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that inflate again, but maybe not as much, right? So I'm going to go back to deformation here and inflate, and maybe just go down by minus. Let's do just -1 or -2. This one's kind of a tough one to do with a tablet. Try and see if I can get it more accurately with a mouse. I don't know if the slider has the top slider. No. This would be a good thing to add, but I just want to go to, just to -2. Here we go. All right, that did it. Okay, so now, and I'll remember it now with the history brush, and then I'll jump over to the new model right here. And let's see. Yep, that's exactly what I want. So now it's exactly doing what I want, which is getting rid of whatever I don't want based on that history. So this history brush capability is a very, very cool thing to use, right? I could probably get rid of all these greebles just by using it this way. So if you guys have not upgraded to ZBrush 2020, just this thing right here is worth it, let alone all the other amazing stuff. So I just want to make sure that, you know, if I'm adding this surface over here, that I'm making it coplanar. And again, just a little bit of smoothing will make it work. Right, and again, I'm not worried about it because I'm going to be looking at my spaceship probably as a whole and not zooming in. Now this back part I'm not really worried about because I'm going to put some kit bashed exhaust engines there and whatnot, so that's all okay. But all this kind of stuff over here looks like it's some sort of tattoo blistering or something like that. All right, let's see if we've got any layers are, layers are for Morph Target. Yep. So Morph Target and layers go together. Yes. So you can use it for that as well. That's correct. But in this case, I think, you know, with these few tricks, I'm getting what I want. I don't really need to use layers or Morph Target for now. Yeah, this would have been a lot easier with Morph Target too, by the way, if I'd remembered to store one. But sometimes you forget, and you can either go back in time and do it over, or you can figure out a different way of doing it. And that's what I like about ZBrush is that there's a lot of ways to do the same thing, or a different version of the same thing. So I'm just going to use Shift here, like so. All right, so I think you guys have a good idea, and this is all going to be, you know, a bit of manual work. I don't mind it on the top; it looks good, but on the wings and on the bottom, I don't like it. So I might go in and fix that when I'm offline. All right. Yeah, Sid, you were saying you're getting your head around ZBrush and it's a long road. It is a long road, but that's actually a good thing, right? The last thing you want to know is kind of, it's like something that you always find new ways of doing stuff, and it's one of those programs that it's always fun to learn new things and do new things with it. I don't know if you guys are watching all the other streams, but there's some really good ones happening. There's some ZBrush Masters showing some stuff. I always watch those and learn new things in those. So make sure you guys are watching the Masters series. So far it's been organic stuff, but I'm sure there'll be cooler stuff coming in future episodes. But it's been great so far. There have been some amazing artists. Geo's was really fun. I always learn stuff from Geo. And there were a couple others. Vicar's was really good. And then Paul and Joseph always, and Solomon, all three of the ZBrush folks, or the Pixologic folks, always do amazing things. All right, so let's let this save. Am I doing a Masters series? I don't think so. I don't know. They haven't asked me. If they do, I'll be more than happy to comply. The folks at Pixologic are awesome. I will do everything I can to help them whenever I can. The good news is with this shutdown, I've got plenty of time. And I've been working on a couple of projects in ZBrush as well. one of which is a graphic novel. And again, if I am working on a graphic novel, the capability that I showed you earlier of rendering NPR is really cool. So I just basically do this and go through some of the filters or find a filter. I've actually kind of honed down the filter to what I want. And I can go ahead and create images that look like this that work really well. So here's a spaceship far away. And then the next plate, it's up close. And in the next plate, it's zooming in on a certain section. And all these kind of weird stuff can easily be fixed in Photoshop afterwards, or I can even fix it here. And, maybe it's zooming in on the bridge like so. Right? And look at how fast these renders are, right? So, and then I just export these out. Put some text, and I've got a graphic novel. All right. So let's see what else is going on here. Having the high poly model with the rotating and to move around the model, it would drop to very low poly to prevent lagging. Yeah. The thing that you're talking about, yes, I do how to do. So the thing you're talking about is, and I don't know if it won't work with this one, but it might work here. I'll do it with this one right here, right? So this is kind of the initial one we started with. This thing here is very low poly, right? And if I go and subdivide this thing a few times, right? So now it's going to be like, I don't know, how many million polys is it? No, it's not even in the millions yet. Let's do 7. Is it a million yet? Okay, so that's 2 million. I'll do it one more time, right? So now it's a lot of millions of polys. This is for John Hyde, okay? So now you're saying that this would take too long to rotate. You're right. So if I wanted to drop down to low res while I rotate, that is, I think you go in here under Solo and you click on Dynamic. So this button right here, if this button is on, it's this thing on top of where it says Solo. Then in between, and you'll see here, I don't know why this is not showing the polyframe. Okay, here we go. Right, so notice that when I drop down, when I move it this way, it drops down to the lowest subdivision level. So it's very, it takes little time, and then and it comes back when you let go, right? So when you're rotating at the lowest subdivision level, and then when you stop it, the highest subdivision level comes in. And that's what this dynamic over here, you can turn that on and off if you want to. So here, let's delete all the higher subdivision levels and go back to what we were doing. Does that answer your question, John? Yep. Okay, cool. Good. All right, and then here, let's see. These weird streaks over here, I don't want those, so let's delete those. So, I mean, the alphas add a lot of detail really fast, but you do need to do a little bit of cleanup, and hopefully you've seen kind of some of the cleanup tactics that I've been using here to get what I want to be there. And the next week, we'll just add kit bash parts to this. I think I'll be done with this thing by next week. And then after that, we can spend the next 4 weeks more in rendering and painting and doing all that stuff, fun stuff. So my previous streams that I did, Season 1 and Season 2, we spent most of the time modeling. And this one, I'm going to try and get the modeling done by the middle of the stream, so maybe episode 4 or 5. And then just spend the rest of the time painting and doing look dev and rendering and all that good stuff. All right, that looks good. Another trick that you can use here, and I don't know how well it'll work, but we can try it, is using the clay polish. Let's try and see what that does. And when I'm using ZBrush, I'm always looking at ways of making things be a lot quicker. So when I discovered this trick of kind of punching through the geometry, that really helped. And here what I'm going to do is try and see if clay polish will give us anything. So I'm just going to turn that on. And that seems like it did some interesting things here, right? So it masked some of the areas and gave us a little bit of a pattern. And I'm liking what I'm seeing here. And also, notice that there is a mask that it added. So I get close up here, you can see that it added a mask. So let's go ahead and see what happens if I do an inflate or deflate. Let's see if that adds anything interesting to the effect of what I've got. So here, look at that. I'm getting a whole kind of other thing happening. So what about, yeah, I can do this right here. And if I clear the mask, I've got something that looks more like this, which looks pretty cool too. So yeah, clay polish does some interesting effects. So now this looks like it's all kind of raised up. And if I go the other way, right, if I don't inflate, if I deflate, if I go the other direction, right, then I basically will create this type of look, which is also really cool, right? So now I basically panelize these things. And again, from far away, from the kind of the entire look of the spaceship, this looks pretty cool. And again, this actually makes it look like it's a Gatling gun. That's funny. Let me go ahead and render this, see what that looks like. And the render looks good. Wow. Yeah, I'm actually, for my for the graphic novel that I'm doing, there's a building that I'm working on, and this will go ahead and make that building happen very, very cool and quick. We're using this method. So that's another kind of thing to use. I'm actually going to go ahead and keep this. So what I'm going to do is, before I did this, I'm going to save a version of it. So here I'm just going to go to Subtool and duplicate this because I like it. But go to the initial one and go back to what I had before I did that, just in case I need that previous version before. So this is before and this is after. All right. Event Horizon Time. Yes. Such a good movie. Thanks for reminding me. I should watch that again. Yeah, so a lot of these things kind of make, greebling up the spaceship a lot easier. So these few functions in ZBrush will make that work out for me. So what's nice about the clay polish too is that there were some weird areas over here and it added panels to that. So let's go ahead and just see if I can get rid of some of these weird kind of areas by just using normal polish. So again, going into deformation here, let's see what polish by features does, and let's just choose a big setting. Now that totally kind of pillowed it out for me. However, this might be a cool thing to do if I want to create some of that kind of, some spaceships have cloth on them. So this effect, so clay polish with polish by features, gives me things that look more like a pillow effect. And I can maybe go in with a cloth alpha here and add some wrinkles, and that could add some interesting effects too. So maybe I'll try some of those effects. So let's see, let me go to Lightbox here and go to my brushes and go to, I think I've got some cloth brushes here somewhere. Wrinkle brushes or something like that. Patterns. Let's see what's in here. Nope. Let me go to this folder. There's a bunch of different brushes I have here. And let's see here. Cracks and rocks, folds. Here we go. Yep, I do have some. Maybe choose, let's see what this looks like right here. Right, and then maybe do a drag rectangle and push it in. I think I've got too little, geometry to add an interesting effect here. But if I do a little bit of this, like so, and I'm sure I can get better brushes for this, I can create kind of those pillowy type of effects that some kind of spaceship exteriors have. Try more intensity for the brush. Maybe that'll do it. So you guys see what I'm getting at? I can just kind of soften this up like that. It's so, yeah, I'm not getting the exact effect that I want. But I think you know what I'm talking about. Is, let me see if I've got better ones of these. I think there's some cool fold brushes that ZBrush Guides has. Yeah, here we go. This will do. So maybe do this. There, that's exactly what I wanted. And just touch it up with a little bit of the smooth brush, and maybe hit it a little bit with inflate. Inflate those middle parts, and then it gets that type of cloth pillow look that you have. There we go. Something like that. All right. Okay, so now that we have this going on, I got to think about, all right, well, what kind of things can I do here? And by the way, you can also mask certain stuff off here if you want to add alphas. You can do that too. But this is looking pretty nice. I like the different serrations and gradations that I've got here. Let's start working on this spaceport. Right, and this I want to push in, so I'm just going to do this, and I just want to isolate that part so I don't have the rest of the spaceship to contend with. Maybe just do this like so. And there is a way to do a coplanar kind of masking, but I forget how to do it. Maybe I'll look it up after. So here I'm just masking this area off like this, inverting the mask. Oops, let's harden that mask. Oops. So all right, and then what I want to do is just push this part inwards to get that spaceport. I'm getting some kind of funky edges over here, but just a little bit of masking or smooth brush will fix it all. Right. And again, I could put some kit bash parts in here to make this a little bit better. But right now I just want to create that kind of indentation of where that spaceport's going to be. All right. I'm destroying a little bit of the greebles, but that's fine. Right, so now I've got that spaceport the way it is. And now, of course, I hate it because it's got really thin edges. But let me see if I can fix it with the clip curve brush. That's better. Not exactly what I want, but much better than what I had before. All right, and maybe use inflate here to inflate this part out. I know I haven't looked at questions for a while. I will in just a second here. All right, that's looking more along the lines of what I want. So basically this would be a port that little spaceships will come out of. And I probably will create a few of those little spaceships to have them for scale. All right, so that's looking okay. let's see, what other things can I do here? Now, of course, I don't have the separation of the pieces done here. So maybe when I do the alphas over again offline, what I will do is do them each separately. So I'll do each one of the 3 separate pieces separately so that I can still do that separation if I want to later. Okay. And this is still one polygroup, Sid. So you were asking if I can turn polygroups on and off. It's still all one polygroup right now, but if I wanted to get polygroups, I would probably do it by whatchamacallits, doing the polygroups by normals, but it took a long time, so I kind of aborted that. I might try and do it on my own later on. But yeah, and then you were asking what games or films have I worked on. Let's see, what have I worked on? I worked on a couple of movies that didn't get green light lit, so, but nothing major. I'm still waiting for that big kind of break to come in at some point. Hopefully one of these days. I had a couple of really good opportunities to work on some amazing movies, but funding for them got pulled last minute. And unfortunately, I can't show any of the work from it because of NDAs. And what games have I worked on? I worked on a Star Wars short. That was really fun. I don't know if I have it in my Instagram, but I did work on a Star Wars short where I made the platform. I don't know if you guys remember in Return of the Jedi, there was that platform that Luke landed on, and they took him to Darth Vader on Endor. I recreated that platform for the show, for the short. And I think I've got links to it in my Instagram or on Facebook. If you guys are interested, you can go find it. But I've not worked on any Avengers movies or any Star Wars movies, or I have friends that have, but I haven't. All right, let's see other questions. I'm not worried about it, Sid. My goal isn't to work on movies. My goal is to work in general. So whatever work I get, I'm usually pretty happy with. Yeah, the movie industry is pretty weird as a business. All my friends that work in the movie industry always tell me that they're experiencing interesting things all the time. They create a lot of work that never gets used. They get paid for it, which always is a good thing. But their work, all their work gets used. All right, so here I'm just basically going around the spaceship, finding areas that don't look good and fixing it, which is basically, a lot of kind of manual work, but, I can't imagine how much manual work it would be to create all these things from scratch. So it takes a lot less time to remove things than to add things to the spaceship. All right, let's see here. I think we got half an hour left or so. Yep. Yeah, it happens all the time. one of the movies was Robopocalypse, which was a Steven Spielberg thing. And I thought that would, like when they called me to work on that, I was really, really happy. But then, I think it was like about a week before it got cut. So that never happened. And then I got called to work on, I think the first, was the movie with the robots and the kaijus. I got a call from, what was it? Yeah, Pacific Rim. I got a call from Guillermo del Toro's company to work on that, but I was doing something else at the time and I couldn't do it, which kind of sucks. But I honored my commitments. I wanted to make sure whatever I was on, I did that part, and then I got a friend of mine was going to try and get me into J.J. Abrams' company, but then they closed down that department. So I've had a lot of really close misses, which sucks. But on the other hand, I'm not worried because movies are still being made and I'm still doing what I'm doing. So sooner or later, somebody will call me. What I would really like to work is on a Blade Runner movie. So if they make another one, it'd be awesome if the director or whoever it is gave me a call. I might have a scoop in here or something that basically is a collector later. I don't know. Right now it looks non-symmetrical. All right. Yep, Sid, I agree. I like the last Blade Runner too. A lot of people don't like it though. You can never win, All right, so at this point, all I'm doing is kind of tweaking around this thing. Let me see if I can add some kit bash parts. And for first, initially, what I want to do is just add kit bash parts that are going to be more just kind of secondary shapes. So here I'm just going to go and choose my, man, all these things opened up. I think I might have clicked something to do it. I'm going to choose my IMM brush of primitives. So here, let's go ahead and go to Subtool. Actually, I'm just going to use the insert mesh function. So I'm just going to use this, and these are basically just primitives that I have. And let's start with cubes and start thinking of where I want to add certain cubes. So I wanted to definitely add something on the other side here, maybe over here. Maybe something like this. So here I'm basically just looking at maybe some other kind of big shapes to add to the spaceship, but as kit bash parts. So this is making it a little bit more symmetric, which is not what I want. So let's move it in the back here and just maybe see if it works over here. At this point I'm going to turn perspective off. Maybe set this an angle like that and make it wider. This is looking okay. I wonder what it would look like if I add some sort of like a curved object here. So I'm going to try and use the bend deformer with it. All right, so I'm just going to go back to just a normal cube and just one more time. Right, so something like this, but right now this has only one. And let me accept this and separate it out. So split 2 parts. Or let's just say split unmasked parts. Okay, so now this is going to be its own thing. Get off of solo, hide all these other things here. And what I want to do here is add subdivision levels to this. So there's different ways of doing it. I'm just going to use ZModeler, and let's move on to this piece. I'm just going to use ZModeler and use multiple edge loops, and let's go ahead and maybe do, let's see, 20 here. Let's do 25. All right, this doesn't look good. Oh, crash. All right, let's see if it saves the project. If it doesn't, it's cool. We didn't do a lot. Let's go restart ZBrush. Didn't look like it had enough time to save, but we'll try it. I don't know. I've worked with computers long enough to know that stuff crashes, so I just make it part of my workflow that it's going to crash. I mean, I've been using it for. I mean, I was using it before the stream started, and it looks like I've got a cool part already saved. Let's see if we can recover the tool. Let's see what that does. I think Ismail is saying that Ismail Hamzawi is saying that I can add lamps and render it. Absolutely, I will definitely do that. We're gonna have little lights on it or whatever. All right. Yeah, cool. I'm back to exactly where I started. So I don't know what the hiccup was there, but and it was like a pretty standard operation that I did, so that was really strange. So I'm going to add multiple edge loops, and I'm going to add 25 edge loops. Let's see what that looks like. That's a good number. I think, yeah, let's stick with that. Okay, and then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add, let's make sure my gizmo is in the center of the object, and what I want to do here is add a bend deformer, bend arc, and let's do that from here. Nope, that's not what I want. Did I pick the right one? I want to do it this way. Let's see, I think it's this one. Nope. Why is this not happening right? Maybe it's the other one. I always get mixed up between bend arc and bend curve. I think this might be the one. Let's see what this does. Smoothness, curve resolution, axis, and symmetrical. Yep. Smooth. And no, this is not it. It was the first one, but for some reason, let's see, here we go. I think this bends it this way. Nope. It's the yellow one, I know. Yep, okay. We want to do this, but we want to do it this way. I think it's this one. No. And no again. So why is this not happening the way we want it to be? Here we go. This is what I want. Right, so I'm going to do this exact same thing, but I'm not going to have perspective on. Here we go. This is kind of what I was envisioning doing, like so. So maybe there would be some sort of a thing here that is this way. Maybe not as big, maybe that. All right, that worked. And then let's go back to that bend arc and do it some more. Cool. I dig this a lot. So that's what we wanted there. And let's look at other shapes we can add to this. I think I can move this further up. All right, so when I'm done with this, I can just accept it. And I can do other things to it too, but I think I like the way it is as is. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And now I want to add another piece to it. So again, I'm going to go to my primitives brush. Let's see here, and add maybe some sort of one of these guys to it. And again, it doesn't really matter that I'm adding this to this object or not. So maybe it's going to have one of these parts like over here. Maybe not that big. All right, and what I want to do is I don't want this to be like this. I actually want it to have facets. So I'm going to use ZModeler again. Actually, let me split it out. So split mass points. Where are you? All right. I should just split the other ones. All right, here we go. And so what I want this shape right here, but I want to do a inset, all polygons, something like that. And then I want to Q-mesh this polygroup inwards, like so. All right, so now I've got this shape there, and that's good. And I can resize it or put it somewhere else. So this is a shape I'm going to use. And I like this. Let's see what happens if I have another one on the other side. No, I think I like it to be asymmetrical. And I like the size to be maybe about this big. That's okay. I'm kind of not liking this thing as much being over here. So let's see if I move it over to the back. This looks kind of neat, sticking out like that. So, you know, I could probably use this as a kit bash part. I'd probably save it as a kit bash part as well. All right, so that's good. And then the other thing I also want to add is maybe some kind of, metal kind of bars or whatever that hold these things together. And I've got a bunch of questions here. All right. Oh, the face cam's kind of weird. Let me see if I can fix it. Thanks for letting me know. Here we go. Yeah, sorry about that. I don't know why the focus is kind of coming in and out. Maybe let me try doing this too. There we go. I think that works a little bit better. All right. So now what I want to do is, create some metal parts, and for that I'm going to use Spotlight again. And I don't really, none of this really matters for that. I'm just going to go to its own kind of tool here. And while I'm at it, let me just do a quick save. So I've got a version of this saved. And to create the metal bars, I'm just going to use Spotlight here. So again, go to Spotlight. And I did a little bit of this last time. I'll do it again. I'll go to Spotlight. And I'm going to use the one here that, this one. And let's turn Spotlight on. I don't know why that one didn't come up. Let's do it again. Let's try this one. And let's shrink it in size. Let's shrink all of them in size. Nope. Where are the rest? I think the problem is, I mean, I can see them over here. They're on the side, but the problem is, here we go. I've got my screen size here is a little bit smaller. So let me, and this is not the one I wanted to. Let me get the one I want. Is it this one? think it's a lot. Of course, it's going to be this one right here. Yep. And let's make that smaller. Is it the first one that I wanted? No, it's not. All right. So I think it's this one. Of course, the last one. I told you guys. It's the last one I pick. Murphy's Law. All right. So what I want these kind of pieces right here. And so what I'm going to do is just start out with a cube here, bring it over. And by the way, the reason why I have a cube, a sphere, and a triangle in the set is because a lot of times you just need to start off with a primitive. And you can only have one spotlight loaded, so I'm just going to do this. Scale it up. And by the way, this star in the back doesn't really matter. The only thing I'm going to use it is for depth. So here I'm just going to turn this off and move this, make it smaller, and move it out of the way. Turn spotlight back on. And pick this one, move over here. Scale it this way. Like so. And scale the whole thing up. So I'm just basically going to make a bar here. And for that, I'm going to use this piece right here. Bring it over. Pick a good size for it. About there. Like so. And I'm going to subtract this. So I think subtract is Control-Alt. Click. I don't know why it's not subtracting it. Come on. So subtract is Control or just Alt, not Control Alt. Okay, so that just subtracted it, and now what I want to do is rotate this around. Like so. Make sure it's aligned with these ones. Move it over and subtract it again. It's not happening exactly where I want it to be. Let's move it. Too much. About there. All right, that's good. And I think there was a way to, I think Joseph did it, where there was a way to do these automatically, like generate them, a bunch of them at once. And I don't know if I cut it in half or whatever, but right now I'm just going to do it this way. All right, which way do we have it now? All right, let's rotate it back. Like so. I'm holding shift down just to get those locks, and too low. I think a good thing to do is just to match these two up like this, and then shift drag it and shift drag it. There we go. Actually, this will work too. So here it's kind of got an issue where it's snapping to that center point, and I think there's a way to turn that off too. Is it in here? Let's see, preferences, spotlight, light box. Is there not a spotlight option? There should be one somewhere. All right, I don't know. This is, nope, good, not good enough. All right, I'm just going to rotate it as well. That. Align it this way and move it over. Subtract. It's good enough. And of course, you know, if I was doing this, you know, I would probably spend more time to get it aligned right. But what I was saying earlier is I could just match these two. And if I subtract, I get the third, and then just bring it over. Match this one, do it, get that one, match this one. Again, there's probably a faster way of doing this, but right now I'm just going to go with this method. And then I think we need one more here, like so. All right, I think I'm just going to agree with this. I'm just going to stick with what I got so far. And I'm going to choose this one and make a 3D object out of it. So Snapshot 3D does that. And then let's get rid of all the other stuff. And I've got this piece right here, like so. All right, then what I want to do here is I want to go ahead and get this to be a certain way. I like it the way it is, but I'm going to do something else to it. So I'm just going to select this one face, and I'm going to delete the other ones. So I just have this one face. And then I'm going to go ahead and reduce the size of it to about here. And for that, I guess I could just use the clip curve. Like so. And let's see what mirror and weld will do to this. It does okay with it. I don't know where this is in relation to the floor, so let me move it over here and center it. Like so. That's actually not centering it the way I want. I want to get this to be more on the center. X, and let's mirror and weld it. Okay, so now I've got this. It's symmetrical on both sides. And then the other thing I want to do is maybe not have it be so. Fix the top part as well. Now what this is doing is it's crunching it up, but I'm going to zero mesh this thing. So I'm going to go here to zero mesher. I'm going to do detect edges, and let's go to half of what's there. See what that gives us. Is this its own subtool? It is. I don't need the star anymore. I'm going to delete it. Okay. All right. So did this zero mesh? Nope. Let's do it one more time. For some reason, it is not zero meshing it. What is going on? Let's do normal zero mesh. Did normal one, all right. So why can't I do one with detect edges? All right. Well. This is good enough. Let's do another mirror and weld. And let's do another zero mesh. Okay, that's good. All right, let's see if we can go even less geometry. It's starting to fall apart at this point, so I think this is as good as we're going to get. All right, so now that we have this shape, I'll go ahead and Q-mesh it, but I'm going to Q-mesh all the polygons. I guess this will work too. I think it's adding edge loops. Let me turn that off. All right, so now I basically have this shape like that. Okay, that's good. And now what I'm going to do is inset all these guys. Inset, this is edge. Inset polygroup island or polygroup all. Let's do polygroup all. And I want to inset as region. Do this. Floor and do a Q-mesh polygroup all of this. Like so to push it in. And now I've got a shape kind of like this. And I can tweak the horizontal and vertical aspects of it to get different results. Maybe have it not be so thick. All right, so now that I've got this shape, what I want to do is get 4 of them. And so here I'm just going to go ahead and hold Control down, duplicate it, and rotate it this way. And see if I can intersect it, like so. That's good enough. Right, and what I want to also do is duplicate this again. Actually, what happens with these things is that these two are on the same side, so what I want to do here is rotate one of them around its center this way. Right, so I get this type of thing happening. And bring this out like so. Yep, that's what I want. All right, so now clear the mask, duplicate this whole thing, rotate it all the way around and put it in this way. And now I've got this kind of thing happening. It is a little bit off this way. All right. So now I've got this really kind of cool shape. Let's do a quick render of it. Looks better in perspective, of course. So I've got this object here, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and use this object all throughout the entire ship. So I'm going to go to Subtool here or just go back to my spaceship. I think we are at time, but I'm going to go a little bit over here. All right, and then let's append this new thing that I made. There it is. It's pretty small. Oops, where is it? Here it is. And oh, look at the difference in size between the two. Let's get it that as a 90 degrees, and I don't really need it to be that big at all. It's going to be pretty small. Right, and I can use this as the arm. That's going to be holding up maybe this antenna. Right, so it just could be this small arm, but you can see the details look really kind of cool. Like so. And then maybe I'll put another one on the bottom. I can angle it too. Maybe it goes up at an angle. That looks good. And then let's just move both of these forward. Like so. I'm sorry I haven't looked at questions for a while, but I will in just 1 second here. All right, there's that. And then I want to create another two. So I'm just going to control drag them. And so now I've got 4 of those things kind of holding this antenna piece together. And, you know, I can use these parts all over the spaceship to hold different pieces together. All right. All right, let's see. Veltzar is saying, I love that tool. I bent a katana in seconds. Yeah, the bend deform is really nice. All right, I've just used the snapshot 3D and Spotlight to make that. Yeah, I could have. There's a lot of different ways of doing something again. So yeah. All right, so we're kind of coming towards the end of this one. I guess if anybody has any more questions, I'll answer them. And then we'll just leave this one here. And I'll probably do some work offline just to kind of have work on some of these things that I just did. And then what I'll do is continue it in a couple of weeks. But I should let you guys know is always look at the schedule if you want to watch my streams. Because since I was teaching Friday nights, we moved it to Sunday from 4 to 6. But what we're going to do, as I think we're going to move back to Fridays. So we're going to move back to Friday night. So none of that is really determined yet. But what I would recommend you do is for the next one, it's probably going to be in 2 weeks. But make sure that you look at the calendar to see when the next one is. And in the next one, we'll go ahead and I'll probably have the outside part done. And what we're going to do at that point, I'm trying to angle this, see if it looks better at an angle, and it does. And what we'll do is for that next one, we're gonna basically do a little bit more kit bash adding and finish it up. So I want to finish up the modeling next week, definitely by the week after. And then after that, we will start painting it. So with that, thanks for being on, and we'll go ahead and talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.